Today we're going to start Unit 2, Adding and Subtracting Fractions. Today's lesson is on using a money model. It is going to be a new way for you to think about decimals and fractions. Okay, make sure you have out this piece of paper. We are going to be talking today about the money model. These are the 5 coins most common in the United States. The first one we're going to begin with is the $50. It is the largest of the 5 of these coins. As I'm writing, please also write this down. $50. That's its name. Sometimes it's also called a 50-cent piece because it is worth 50 cents. We're going to write the cents in the box with the coin. So 50 cents right there. Now, when we are using the money model, we're going to keep looking at these squares. This is $1. If we count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 100 little squares. What do you think that represents? If you guessed 100 cents in $1, you are correct. 100 cents in $1. So we're going to look at 50 cents. Here we have our 50-cent piece and the mat, which has 50 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 10. So in our fraction box over here, we are going to write 50 over 100 because the fraction is 50 hundredths. Now we can also see over here that the white is half of the green dollar mat. So a reduced fraction, and reduced means that it's the smallest that it can be, would be 1/2, because the 50-cent piece, exactly 2 of them would fill up the dollar mat. Here are my 2 50-cent pieces, which 100% cover the dollar mat. Now let's think about the decimal. If we were going to write 50 cents as $1, we would write the dollar sign, then we would put $0.50. We could write it that way, or we could think about our place value chart. Over here, our decimal is between the ones and the tenths. So we have no ones, but we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of tens. So since this is in a 100s chart, we have 5 tenths or 50 hundredths. If we counted each one of the boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's how we would get 50, like that. So we could also write the decimal as 0.50 or 0.5. The exact same thing. Now we'll move on to the quarter. Quarter. A quarter is worth how much? 25 cents. How many quarters are in $1? If you said 4, you are correct. So on each of these pieces, which this equals 1 quarter. See how there's that much in the 1 quarter box? On each of the 1 quarter pieces, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which would be 25 boxes for the quarter, which means there are 25 out of 100 total. So a quarter is 25 hundredths. Or, as we can see, there are how many quarters in this on this mat? There are 4. So if we reduce this, a quarter is 1/4 of a dollar. 1/4 of a dollar. So we could write that how? As a decimal. Well, when we write 25 cents, we write the dollar sign and then we put $0.25. We could also write that as 25 hundredths. So we would write 0 and 25 hundredths. Now some people saw earlier that I had left off the 0 on this one. So maybe you thought, oh, we can just put 0.2. But that is not correct because there are 5 extras here that aren't being used then. If you only count 0.2, you're only counting these. And a quarter is not worth only 20 out of 100. It's worth 25 out of 100. So make sure you do not put 0.2 or 2/10. Now we are going to look at the dime. The dime is the smallest of the American monies in size, but it is not worth the least. A dime is worth 10 cents. We spell dime D-I-M-E. As you can see on the money mat, it takes 10 dimes to make a dollar. So 1 dime, or 10 cents, is how much of a dollar in a fraction? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 squares that we're looking at out of how many total? How many total are in the money mat? 100. So we can tell that a dime is 10 hundredths of a dollar. Now, we can also reduce that fraction or make it smaller by saying, all right, here's a group of 10, here's a group of 10, here's a group of 10, and so on until how many groups will we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 groups. So we would write that one group is counted out of 10 possible groups, or 1/10. We can do the exact same thing to find the decimal. There is 1/10. So when we go to our place value chart, we put the 1 in the 10th place and a 0 in the ones place because there are no whole amounts. So we have 0 and 1/10. Or we could also write that as money and put 10 cents. And on this one, because there's only a 0 back here, you could also write 0 and 10 hundredths. So that is also possible. All right, moving on to the nickel. It is worth 5 cents. It is named nickel because it has nickel, a type of metal, in it. A nickel is worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts out of 100, the whole. To find what 5 hundredths is reduced, we need to split up the dollar. So we can see this is 1. So let's split it like this, and then we can see our groups, and we will count how many groups there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 groups. So this is 1 part out of 20. Therefore, a nickel is 1/20th of a dollar. 1/20th of a dollar. Let's write that down. Now, to find the decimal, I need to take 5/100ths and make it into a decimal. So I'm going to take since it says hundredths, I'm going to put the 5 in the hundredths column. And it doesn't say anything about tenths, so I'm going to put a 0 there. And it's less than 1, so I'm going to put a 0 in the ones column. So we can see that our decimal is 5/100ths. We can write it with a $sign. But we cannot write it without this 0, because this would be the decimal in 50 cents, or 1/2. So this is not correct to be 5/100ths, or a nickel's worth. Now, last coin, but certainly not least, is the penny. Penny. A penny is worth how many cents? 1. On this money mat, you can see the penny only takes up 1 square. So we can see that the penny is worth 1 out of 100 total squares. We can't reduce 1, so this is the same. It cannot be reduced. It's still 1/100ths. So right, cannot be reduced. It can be a decimal, though. If we say 1/100th, the 1 goes in the hundredths place because it said hundredth. They didn't say anything about tenths, so we put a 0. And we know that it's less than $1, so we put a 1 in the ones. So our answer to the decimal is 0 and 1/100ths. Or you can write it as money. All right, I know that took a while, but it's really important that we understand how these money mats work. Based on what we saw earlier, we're going to move on and answer these questions. So, if you hear someone say 3/4 of a dollar, what are you going to be thinking about? We want to think about money, 3/4. So think back, which of our coins could use fourths? We can see here that fourths has to do with quarters. So when we talk about coins, we're going to be thinking about quarters. We're going to write the word quarter here. So if we have 3 quarters, how many cents do we have? We have 75 cents. Perfect. All right, here's our money mat. What fraction of $1, which is the whole square, is 3/4? You might have said that 1, 2, 3/4 is 3 out of 4 parts of a dollar. Or maybe you said that each one was 25 and altogether it was 75 cents out of a dollar. Both of those would be correct. But usually we're going to go with the smaller reduced fraction. Now, for the decimal, if we had 75 cents, we would have 75/100ths. So when we write that as a decimal, we're going to write 75/100ths. And since it's talking about a dollar over here, we can put a $sign. 75 cents is the same as 3/4 of a dollar. Now I want you to pause the video and do the same thing with 7/10 and 11/100ths of a dollar, both of which I have provided the money mats for at the bottom of the screen. So pause the video, fill it out. So when we did 7/10ths of a dollar, we used dimes. We know that 7/10ths of a dollar, you can count it down here, is 70 cents. The fraction would be 7 out of 10. So because there are 7 dimes out of the 10 possible that there could be. Again, if you wrote 70/100th, that is correct, but we're usually going to go with that reduced fraction. And our decimal will be 7/10ths. Or you could write 70/10ths with a 0. 70/100ths. But because we like that reduced fraction, we're probably just going to have 7/10ths. Now for 11/100ths, we don't have any 11-cent coins in the United States, so we have to use 1 dime and 1 penny, which will give us 11 cents. Now our fraction would be 11 out of 100 total cents. There is no reduction of that fraction, so that's going to be our final answer. And for the decimal, we will have 11/100ths, just like the fraction there. So it will be 11/100ths as a decimal. Now it's your turn. In your student book on page 32, you're going to answer the following questions. The first one, you're going to write each amount as a decimal. So here and here will be a decimal that tells me what 2 quarters is. Write it here. 3 dimes and 5 pennies, write it here. If you need to use the money mats, they're available in the classroom. Then on the second question, you're going to write each of these as a fraction. Make sure that you see that it's a fraction, and here it's a decimal. So we're going to see 3 quarters is what fraction of a dollar. 7 dimes is what fraction. Remember, you can use the money mats. On number 3, we're going to be doing word problems. So use numbers, labeled sketches, or words to show your work. I'm going to read A. Mila has half of a dollar. Claire has 1/4 of a dollar. How much money do the girls have together? Record your answer as a fraction and as a decimal. So it's important to remember here, we're going to do it as a fraction and a decimal. Okay. Mila has half of a dollar. That's important, so I'm going to circle it. And Claire has 1/4 of a dollar. That's important, so I'm also going to circle it. The question is asking, how much money do the girls have together? Together being the key word. When we're trying to find out how much something has together, are we going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide? We are going to add. So it's your job to either use numbers or draw pictures or write it in words to show how you solved what 1/2 of a dollar plus 1/4 of a dollar is. I personally like to use the coins, so I'm going to draw my 50-cent piece here. And 1/4 of a dollar, I know that that is a quarter. So I'm going to add 50 cents plus 25 cents equals 75 cents. So I have it in money. I need to have it in a fraction and a decimal. So decimal is easy. All I have to do is make it into a money with the decimal. So there I have 75 cents as a decimal. Now I need to write it as a fraction. So I know that it's 75 hundredths. 75 hundredths. But that's not reduced. How do I reduce it? Let's see. I know this is 3/4. And there's possible 4/4 in a dollar. So 25 more cents would make a dollar. So I can see that I have 3 out of 4 quarters. So I have 3/4. Now I want you to do letter B. I'll read it. Henry has 1 1/4 dollars. Angel has 1 1/2 dollars. How much money do the boys have together? Record your answer as a fraction and as a decimal. So you're going to do this very similarly to how I did it. Pause the video and do this. I will check your answers later. Last, we have the challenge question. Iris has 1 3/5 dollars. Violet has 2 5/10 dollars. How much money do the girls have together? Record your answer as a fraction and as a decimal. So, now we have to think even harder. If we have fifths here, I'm going to circle first my important information. So 1 3/5 dollars, 2 5/10. And then how much do they have together? We know together means to add, and write it as a fraction and a decimal. Now, if we have fifths, that tells us what? How much of a dollar is a fifth? A fifth is not on our fractions from the chart that we did earlier. But tenths are. And I know that if I double 5, I can get 10. So the first thing I'm going to do is double 3/5. So if I take that times 2 on the bottom, I get tenths. But I need to take it times 2 on the top, and I get 6. And I don't want to forget my 1 whole here. So I have 1 6/10. So Iris really has 1 6/10 dollars. And Violet still has 2 5/10 dollars. Now I want you, remember when we have tenths that we can use dimes, okay, to figure out how much money they have together. Don't forget to add their whole dollars that they have. I hope that this video helped you. Remember, if you have any questions, to ask your teacher.